Mm-hmm. They could make your school shitty. They could do things like he was talking about. They don't have to build a high school in your neighborhood.
They don't have to make a grocery store.
A grocery store in your neighborhood.
Like racially profiled.
Bro, all of those things are applied when you can be easily applied to places where people are segregated.
And the outcomes bear that out. That's exactly what they did. So that's what segregation was about. It wasn't because black people didn't make the rules of segregation. The rules of segregation were made by white people.
On those, we had no influence on the rules. So I get why you would say make your own rules.
But what does that mean?
You can't do that because the discourse that I get from you is like, hey, we'll take it by force. And I get it.
Guess what? If we segregate it like willfully, say we just said we're going to willfully segregate. Guess what? You're still going to order stuff from Amazon.
That's what I'm saying. Like to talk about going off on your own, like think of yourself like if you want to think of it, black people, that would be literally being a 17-year-old with no high school education, no job prospects,
running away from home.
One eye missing, talking about I'm gonna make it on my own out here in this big bad world.
It could be done. I'm not knocking you. I'm not here to disparage anybody and tell anybody it can't be done because it may come a time when it actually needs to be done.
Right, but it's about what does it look like? Because what Donnell is saying is not a new concept. It's a concept that gets brought up over and over again. Any given week, I can hear someone saying the same things that Donnell's saying. Yeah. What they never do is they never get into the minutia of how it actually gets done.
That part. Yeah. And we never
need the bits, the nuts and bolts,
or just a planned period.
Yeah, I never heard framework. And also I never. It's like y'all want to quit halfway through the project.
Man,
like we haven't realized we have. It's not like we've gotten to the quote unquote promised land. It's like, well, the shit ain't working. We haven't gotten there yet. So you know what I'm saying? Like, so you basically want to abandon ship and be like, all right, well, this shit ain't working. No, it will work. If you're saying we should come together and fight for segregation, I'm saying we shouldn't. Right. We should come together, push forward, get you know what I'm saying? Get equality and get justice. I'm saying let's do that because they owe us both of those things still. They owe us justice. We need to get our justice. They're not gonna give it to us. I'm saying we need to go get it, but it's owed to us, right? And we're owed an equitable life. So we can get those things if we keep pushing forward. If we go backwards, I don't know if we're gonna get those things. I really don't. You know what I'm saying?
If we go backwards, Prince, keep it a whole buck. If we go backwards, all that you're telling the people in power is y'all really didn't want to begin with. Or you're never going to get
and it's not even necessarily what we're telling.
Let me finish. Whatever foothold we got now, we go back. Think of anything. Think of any race. Think of anything in life. If you go backwards on it, can you progress back? You're going to have to progress back to where you already were.
Well, think about it like this: race in itself is a very archaic way of identifying yourself. And Martin's message was about eventually, because he knows that we were getting mistreated based on race. So first remedying that, but also a message of self-evaluation so that humans can move past past the identification of each other through race and to look at each other in a way that allows us to each participate in the human race and the advancement of the human race. Because thinking about ourselves in terms of race is archaic, and it was an invented construct made for the purpose of separating us, sorting us, and creating their own version of an order. You know what I mean? And so,
it's a very excellent tool to keep war in action.
But look, no. You said so, Donnell. You said that the white boys who used us to create this nation parted ways from their own nation. But that was the thing. When we're talking about parting ways, they were actually in totally another place, and then they kicked the British basically out of the place they were at. And are you going to say that you're going to kick the Americans out of America? Do you think that there's going to be a time where we're able to do that militarily? Because I don't know. It may be.
It may happen. That's what
it could happen.
It may come down to that.
But I want to know where he's at. Is what I'm saying. I'm not saying like, oh no, that's impossible. It's impossible today. It ain't possible today.
Yeah. Like, Martin Luther King, because I do not want to lose sight of the purpose of this show. We're talking about Martin Luther King and the legacy that he left behind. And one of the purest things that you can take from his legacy was that he found more ways to create change and get change done without bloodshed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you're talking about you're going to make your own rules, we might have to do this, we may have to do that. Understand, either you're going to voluntarily go back, which is kind of what you're talking about with segregation, or you're involuntarily going to go back, where they use eminent domain to put us out of wherever we are, and then clamp down on us, and then use that to dehumanize us as a group, and keep it even further in step with the fact that you're talking about segregation. So do we now become only a group of Black people? Do we not communicate with Mexican people? Do we not communicate
from what I'm understanding, anytime people talk about segregation, they're literally talking about
just Black, right?
Yeah, just Black people.
So now you're talking about alienating yourself against other people that have allied with our cause. I'm just saying, there's Mexican people that will say that have gone out and marched with Black people, just like Black people have marched with Mexican people. I've seen it when they were trying to push through HR 2234 back in the day for them to send out the people that like the point I'm making is, even beyond all that, just to even go past the facts, when you're talking about segregating yourself into a people and then mobilizing, one, the United States is not going to let you do that because they killed their own people, if you want to call white people their own people. Look at Ruby Ridge, look at Waco, look at all of that. They're not going to let you do that. One. Two, we don't have the capital to even begin to start that kind of a movement. We just don't have it between us. They've made sure of that. So when we're talking about
why would whites be allies? Sorry.
Why would whites be allies?
Well,
for the same reason.
Why would they be allies?
For the fact that Dr. Martin Luther King couldn't change a group.
Oh, he said non-whites. No. He said non-whites collectively would be allies.
He said it's about independence. It's called independence. So independence. So where? Like, okay, let's just start with that. Where? Donnell, how about that? I think that's a good question. Like, you're saying that, are we going to just take over the entire United States? Are we going to take over sea to signing sea? What is it that you're? Because I'm trying to get Donnell is a true articulation of the plan. Because right now, what you're trying to saying is all over the place. Yeah, independence. We can declare independence. I can declare independence right now, but that doesn't mean I'm actually independent. You don't need capital G. You need heart and a plan. Okay, so let's start with the plan. We're willing, but we're listening. What's the next good step? Because we can, because basically we could all run out in the streets right now and be like, you know what, fuck America. We're gonna start our own country. But what would that look like?
And also, so moving to a different. I just want to get to a few other things. So keep this in line. So Martin Luther King Jr. was about democratic socialism. Mm-hmm. He was about the redistribution of wealth. He was about the wealthy paying their taxes. He was about the poor rising up, coming together. The poor, Black, white, Mexican, it didn't matter. Mm-hmm.
He was about the dignity of work.
The dignity of work. Everybody that has a job, their job is important, and it gives you purpose and it gives you dignity.
He was about a UBI.
Yes, he was about a UBI.
Universal Basic Income. Yep. And he was about the workplace democracy.
Well, that was the last. I'm glad you said it. So Martin Luther King Jr. once again, that's why I say again, if he was alive today, Black people wouldn't be having it. That's just my assumption. I think a lot of
absolutely, because when you talk about those things now, Black people aren't having it. They want to talk about what their own perverted sense of economic justice that they label Black economics. Yeah. Black economics is nothing but a participation, a greater participation in a capitalist system that has
oppressed you
on purpose.
Yeah.
See, there's a difference between a system that has oppressed you because you didn't know how to play the game.
Yeah.
But the system is not oppressing blacks because they don't know how to play the game.
We know
Blacks
the
know how to
system
play the
is
game of capitalism.
Yes.
What black people don't know, what is going on right now is the actual odds are stacked against you on purpose. You are being oppressed on purpose because they understand that with the factors that they control, if they can control those certain factors, they control certain outcomes in spite of good decisions, in spite of collective organization, in spite of it. So they understand, like, look, even at their best efforts, this is the best result they can get. And they control that result because they control capitalism and they control the market. And that's what the government is designed to do, is control market.
And capitalism makes people be more individualistic. And it's easier to control people and it's easier to break people down when they're not together. And that's literally what capitalism is. I talk to people about it all day long. Oh, you got to get yours, man. You got to get yours. You got to look out for your family. And I'm like, but I'm weak alone. Like, I understand that. Like, I understand that when it comes to the system, when we talk about being oppressed by the system or being victimized by the system, I understand that me by myself, I have no power. Like me, like Prince by himself, us three in this room, we have no power by ourselves. Even just us three. You know what I'm saying? But if we can get 300, if we can get 3,000, now we talking. You know what I'm saying? If we can band together, then we got something. You know what I'm saying? Like, the momentum is there. Yeah, we don't need every black person to participate. No. We don't need most black people to participate. We just need a good amount of black people and whoever else, poor people, whatever, to participate in the system, and we could change it.
Right.
So that is what Martin Luther King's message was, and that's why we identify with it so much, because like the more I understand about how messed up the system is, and the more I look at what Martin Luther was talking about, I'm like, okay, he was on point 60 years ago. And here's the thing. It would seem like a part of it would be like, it seems like he was so far ahead of his time, but really, if you just read about capitalism, even without implementing it, right? Like, before you implement it, you can see the inherent flaws in it. Mm-hmm. You can see how it would play out. Marx predicted it. You know what I'm saying? He said this would happen 125 years ago.
Exactly.
So it's nothing new as far as when you look at it and you go, okay, is capitalism good or bad, right? And then you just read about it, you study it, and it's like, all right, here are the parameters. It's unfettered capitalism. You could buy what you want. You could, you know what I mean? Like, okay. Oh, yeah. So what about resources? And yeah, I mean, you just consume as much as you can consume. As long as there is a buyer, right? As long as there's a customer, you make the product. Okay, so it doesn't matter if we destroy it. No, it doesn't matter. You just keep making them as long as they're. Oh, okay, cool. Make as much money as you can. Yeah, so it doesn't matter about the quality of it. No, that doesn't matter. As long as they're buying it, you know what I'm saying? It, like Robert says all the time, capitalism rewards greed. These things, if you understand the system, you could see that the system in itself is inherently flawed. It's not a good system at all. It's not even like capitalism could be good. It can't be good.
Right.
It's bad. From the very beginning, it was bad. And people who knew about
it was bad, but even Marx admits it was better than feudalism.
It was better than feudalism.
It was definitely better than feudalism.
And
it's slavery. So
but here's the funny thing: we live in a feudalistic society right now.
Right. Yeah.
You want to call it whatever, but look at it. The top 1% have all the wealth. The bottom 90% struggle.
Because the bourgeoisie, they broke free of feudalism, not to free everyone from feudalism, to free themselves from feudalism, because they were ruled over, even though they had a lot of capital, a lot of money, they were ruled over by lords that claimed divine right to tell them what to do. Yeah. So they got together with their money and power, and they decided to overthrow feudalism, not for the serfs' sake. They wanted to change the serfs, change the name to workers, to the proletariat. Yeah. The bourgeoisie, though, they said, now that we don't have these lords taxing the hell out of us and keeping them, now we set the rules of the market. We control the quote unquote invisible hand of the market, and now we are the lords.
Yeah. Right.
And so they set feudalism up again once they were free from it.
Yeah.
Now they call it capitalism.
It's almost like See, and it's almost like, some of the better critiques of socialism, because socialism is an experiment still. It's new. It's still an experimental stage. And its old experiment is that, hey, if the government controls all the production of something, that it's just you trading a bourgeois as a boss for the government as a boss. And it doesn't make a difference. That's why workplace democracy, social democracy has now emerged as the more popular stance as far as how to apply socialism to a group of people, because we find that socialism devoid of democracy is a disaster.
Yes, absolutely.
But capitalism, unfettered and without regulation, right, without social regulation, capitalism is an absolute disaster as well.
It's worse because capitalism leaves it in the hand of the private sector, and people, when you make your own rules, like I was just saying, you would get a lot of people just doing a lot of stuff, like nobody is working towards a common cause, and then you got this one person that's like, I'm gonna cut down all these trees. And all right, cool.
I need all of those.
All these trees. Yeah, cool. I'm gonna destroy all these lakes and all this fresh water. Right? I need to. All right, we need fish. Okay, cool. I got this section. I'm gonna kill this whole ocean. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you got these, and that's basically what's happening right now with capitalism. Mm-hmm. With socialism, that wouldn't necessarily be the case, but the people would still be oppressed under that system if it wasn't. If you don't add the democracy to it, if the people don't control it, if you just say, all right, as a government, we're going to control everything. We're going to control the food. We're going to control you're going to have one choice of toothpaste, one choice of toilet paper, whatever, so on and so forth. Yeah, if that happens, then that's terrible. That's not.
Well, now we're slipping into communism at that point. Well, I wouldn't even say communism, because then you're starting to blackwash it. You're slipping away from making it about social programs and more about now social control.
So, what basically either both are socialism, but you have to understand that socialism needs the shift in the thinking of socialism is away from the power of the government controlled production to worker controlled production.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And so basically you got places like the USSR, is government controlled production, right? And and it didn't. I'm not going to say the governments themselves failed.
Yeah.
But socialism didn't fail in the USSR.
No.
USSR went from 1917, there being the poorest, most backward country in the world, in Europe.
Being one of the most productive, if not,
by 1970, they were a superpower.
It did take it, but it did take a lot of help. I mean,
they did it. They did it through production.
China as well.
Look at China. China was backwards.
Who actually practiced National Socialism or socialism only for, what was that, like less than 12 years. They did it for 12 years, and that's a country that it sucks to bring up Germany in this instance, but that's a country that used socialism to completely reform and rechange their country and make them a world superpower.
And America did that as well, though. So that's the thing. Like that's the thing that we need to really hone in on, is the fact that the greatest parts about America are the social programs. Mm-hmm. The parts that you and I like, the parts that keep our lives going, the things that we look for, the things that help us the most on a day-to-day are the social programs. The unfettered capitalism, that selfishness that capitalism breeds, that I hear every single day from various people about how you got to get yours, and it doesn't matter what your neighbor is going through. Mm-hmm. Here's what I'm saying. So I had a conversation today with one of my buddies, and he was saying, this is what I get a lot, is I get called a hater when I say that rich people should pay their taxes. So trying to make that connection right now. I get called a hater when I say wealthy people should pay their taxes, should pay their fair share of taxes, because I'm paying more than my fair share of taxes, right? People didn't understand the concept when I said that if you make $100 million, you should pay $50 million in taxes. If I make 100,000, I should pay like 15,000. You know what I'm saying? Because that 50 million allows me I only make 100,000. That allows me to be able to still live a nice, a really comfortable life.
And guess what? You still have $50 million.
And you still have $50 million, which
this year.
Who the fuck needs $50 million?
This year, because you're probably going to make more than 100 million next year.
Yeah, next year you make another 50 or 100 million next year. So that is what capitalism does. It has warped us to the point to where a person can say, I think we all deserve to live an equitable life. And people say, stop pocket watching. You a hater.
Right, that's like the most asinine thing to say, because in a country, what they teach you in high school and in elementary school about capitalism is that everybody has the opportunity to get ahead, right?
Yeah.
And we all
that's the great
fundamentally
lie.
know
that's the
BS that they teach you, because you got to have a reason to go for 12 years. Because if you don't go for 12 years, you won't get a high school education. If you don't have a high school education, you're going to not make any money. But you might want to go to college in that way. So if you go to college, you make more money. But at the end of the day, they don't tell you they don't tell you the black side of it, which is you're gonna have to deal with a lot of debt.
Right.
We Americans, once you hit 18 years old, you're already in debt to the country. Not to the country, but you're just in debt because capitalism has already put you on a clock to make money. If you're not making money the minute that you're not financially someone else's responsibility, you're already in debt.
Right. Gosh, yeah.
And
you owe somebody something. Yeah.
That's a systematic oppression that is different. Going all the way back to what Donnell said, that's the systematic oppression that replaced segregation.
Hey, and and Donnell raised a good point, because I agree with him on that, with that concept of like get rid of jobs, right, and just have tasks. That way we're all contributing. Like I like that shift. I like that wordplay. I do. I totally agree with that. And I think that we do need to progress to that point. But in the short term, I'm trying to like we have like Robert and I and D, we got an actual like vision. Like this is what like we feel like this is what we need to do next. You know what I'm saying? Like I got a long-term plan, but I don't even know how that shit gonna play out. I really just want to focus on the right now, because I know the right now will help us a lot if we could get certain programs in place. You know what I'm saying? Like right now, because we're bleeding. I'm like, let's stop the bleeding. And then let's talk about, you know what I mean? Like, and then let's talk about like, yeah, you know what? It really doesn't, like Robert brought up one day, we were talking about that. He was talking about automation, right? If robots come into play, if AI comes into play, we shouldn't fear AI. AI should be dope. We should be looking forward to AI. We should be like, hell yeah, man. Now I ain't got to work at Starbucks no more, right? Now I don't have to go, now I don't have to bag grocery. Like we should be looking forward to it. It should be freeing. But in a capitalist society, that won't ever be the case, because you always, like D just said, you always got to make money, right? But if you set it up to where you have certain programs in place, like you're always going to have somewhere to stay, you're always going to have food to eat, you're always going to have access to healthcare, you're always, you know what I mean? Like if you give people these things and people can say whatever, or people won't want to work or whatever, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's stupid. People will want to work because work gives you purpose.
I was about to say, it's one of the fundamental tenets of human life.
But see, the whole thing is when y'all think about somebody working, somebody getting a job, you think about somebody doing what you do, which is you hate your fucking job. And then no, hold on. But the honest to God truth is that the work that people do, like some of the most important work that people have done, they've done for absolutely no money. And so what you've got to understand is that people will follow their dream, their purpose, and they will attribute and I don't believe you're born with a goddamn purpose. I don't believe in that. I think that purpose is something that you decide innately in yourself. But the thrill of life is the actual deciding, the actual grabbing hold of a destiny handcrafted by yourself. And basically you will be free to do that instead of having to, Tina Turner rolling down the motherfucking river for, your couple of bucks.
And that was like, you made an excellent point. I just want to make sure I get that out before. It isn't about the money. Like Martin Luther King, we're talking about Dr. Martin Luther King, who wasn't a rich man. Let's make sure he didn't take money to do what he did. He didn't. He got $1
million when he won the Nobel Peace Prize. Right, $1 million.
I don't think there was that much back.
I don't think it was
like
$100,000.
It was a lot of money. He got a gang of money.
But that's an award that he won because he literally went out, and it wasn't that he didn't. I'm almost assured that he didn't call the Nobel Peace Prize committee, the judge committee, and be like, hey, you know what, I did all this.
That's not how you get nominated.
That's not how it works. So you're talking about like purpose is whatever, or purpose isn't necessarily something you're born with, but like you said, it's something that you come up with, that you craft for yourself. When we talk about Dr. Martin Luther King, you're talking about somebody who was looking for financial equity. We in a world where we have people that like Creflo Dollar, T.D. Jakes, Joel Osteen, who make money on the beliefs of people religiously. That's why it's important to remember a man like Dr. Martin Luther King.
Tyrone said, people are greedy. AI will be a reason to fire people and make more money for themselves.
Absolutely.
It is.
For sure. It could go, but that's the point though. It could go both ways.
Absolutely.
And I'm saying we have the power to control it to where it won't go both ways, to where we could be like, hey, no, we don't want it to go that way. We want it to be like, if you bring in the robots at Walmart, you still pay the people that been sweeping the floor for the last 10 years. You pay them. You owe them.
Or if your factory produces stuff twice as fast, people work
less
for half as long.
Yeah,
the same amount of people working half as long, not fire half the employees and everybody still works to full time, full day. So there's two different ways of looking at that. They don't lose any profit by doing that.
One of the interesting concepts about automation that has always bugged me out is like, if you're going to bring in, like you have a workforce already, and I mean, most of these people, some of these people, if not most, have had some form of college or at least some form of higher education. Why aren't you mixing automation with the opportunity to educate people to be more useful? If you know that they're a low-skilled employee and you're bringing in, like Walmart just introduced automated robots to sweep the aisles. It's funny that you said that. Literally just a 6-foot robot. So that's a problem that needs to be fixed and maintained. So why aren't you taking the people that are working there now and getting them trained on that?
Because that only takes one person.
Yeah, and also here's an example.
They would still cut people.
In Walmart's case, though, okay, you got people sweeping the floor. You got a robot sweeping the floor now. That's dope, right? Like if I got a Roomba in my house and my Roomba's gonna sweep my floor, that's gonna save me time. But it doesn't mean now I don't have any job. It just means now I could do something else way better because I don't have to spend that time sweeping the floor. And I mean, if we're speaking on Walmart specifically, Walmart is a hot ass mess when you go to Walmart. Like, it's stuff everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, so why not those, like, now don't fire that person, but now you could just make your store like that much better, right? Like, it's like now let's.
Well, think about it like this. Imagine everybody that's watching here. First of all, we appreciate you guys. Like, share, subscribe, and thank you so much for tuning in. Imagine if the job that you do now, imagine that you got paid the same amount for it in half the time. What would you do with your extra time? You would still have the same amount of money as you have right now, but you would have less time doing it. Would you maybe take a class? Would you maybe read a book? Would you maybe pursue a hobby? Would you maybe start a business? What would you do? You know what I mean? Would you maybe give to a cause or participate in a cause that was important to you? Would you maybe write a dissertation, write a book?
Yeah.
Would you maybe do some research on something that you've always been trying to research, but you just don't have the time or energy? Would you participate in politics?
Yeah.
What would you do?
I would do this, but just like balls to the walls. But
right.
But Tyrone said, look at the examples we have now. People are currently losing jobs to automation due to greed. Companies are beholden to stockholders.
Absolutely.
And that's the whole.
And that's the problem.
And I was going to say that's the whole point of getting to the point to where you have the social democracy in the workplace.
So decisions about workers are being made by people that are not workers in a back room or in a boardroom, in order to benefit stockholders, when in actuality, by making the workers stockholders and giving the workers access to that room and access to those decisions as well, what you happen is you'd make a more equitable workplace. You'd make a workplace that was more that was better for workers. You didn't make where wages would be fair and where they would have an opportunity to understand exactly what's going on. See, a lot of workers, they don't even know how the sausage is made where they're at when it comes to the business part. That's why they depend on unions and things of that nature too. And we need to not only encourage we not only need to encourage capitalists and owners to work with their employees in a more equitable way. We need to encourage those that won't, those employers that won't do that. We need to encourage union organization. Yeah. And that those things will not stop automation, because we do want automation. Nobody has a milkman coming up to their house on a horse and buggy leaving milk in their front door. Yeah. And everybody's cool with that.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of do.
No, you really, but you don't understand what I'm saying, right?
We
You don't have no horse and buggies, dog. It ain't, hey, hold on. It ain't no horse and buggies, dog. They're not pulling up to the house.
Yeah.
There's not a horse pulling up to the house. It's a car.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's the same.
Okay, well, no, it's not the same. It's a car.
Yeah. And
So it's totally different. You know what I mean?
And milk don't come to your house.
We used to have, even if you had, used to be they had the milkman have one territory, right?
Yeah.
And it'd be a small territory, work it every day.
Still got Schwans.
No, hold on. The Schwans man can work a territory worth 4 or 5 milkmen in a day.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to say, man.
I'm agreeing with you.
Because of automation, there's less need. There's a growth in production and less need for work. But what happens is the capitalist takes that extra time that's created by that production and they use it for themselves.
Yeah.
That's why they were on vacation on their yacht on a Wednesday afternoon, call themselves doing a business meeting with some other capitalist as they're drinking martinis and getting drunk and slapping girls in the ass when you're still working hard as hell every day to make them money and you're not getting paid a decent wage and the wages have remained stagnant for the past 40 years. That's why it's like that. Even though things have become easier to produce. Production is up more than anything. The world's GDP is higher than it's ever been.
Yep.
And that's why also things like GDP and employment rates are meaningless factors in terms of the strength of an economy. And when they throw those words in front of you, though, your stock market, your GDP, and your employment, everybody starts clapping like, oh, everything's going great. Everything's going great. And the capitalists are going great they have tangible money that shows it's going great. And all you have is a job where you're not getting paid enough to sustain livable conditions as your tangible proof that things are going well.
GDP grows for the wealthy.
Absolutely.
It doesn't grow for us. It would be dope if the GDP grew for us. You know what I'm saying? Like if we were reaping the benefits of like, damn, there's more money being made, and now where everybody's making more money, but that's not
right. The GDP is the pie. If the GDP gets bigger, it means the pie is getting bigger. Yeah. But just like during Obama's administration, where 95% of all new wealth went to the top 1%.
It comes back, it's not cyclical.
Right now, it was because during that recession, the only people that was really getting money was the richest of the people. So they were making money hand over the fist in the recession and they actually got richer. Yeah. Then they got buyback. They did stock buybacks because they stock buybacks readily available, bonuses to CEOs, things of that nature. Now, under Trump, all new wealth, 46% of all new wealth goes to the top 1%.
And he did the tax cut.
Yeah.
Right.
Not just the tax cut, but then the tax increase on the poor.
And then and then of course the top, as we see, income disparity is larger than it's ever been. Yeah. Unemployment is down. Well, so they'll tell you unemployment actually down. But
3.6%
but the new jobs are retail jobs, warehouse jobs, service industry jobs. And we all know what those pay, folks. They are the low income jobs
that are temporary jobs, which means you do not have any security of job and you do not have any way of gaining medical benefits without going out and paying.
Well, over 70% of Americans pay 50% or more for their rent or mortgage of their earnings in rent or mortgages. And that is a dangerous prescription for economic failure on a household level.
Yeah. If 50% of your money, if your house poor,
right.
You're poor as hell.
And I was saying 90% of the people in the country
you gotta live.
I'll even say a smaller number because there's some people in the 90% that have found a way to survive, or at least to.
No, you find a way to survive.
But let's say 60% of the people that are in that situation, if they're not able to put money back into your economy, because that was my point of saying the dollar isn't cyclical when it goes to the top. It goes to the top, it stays there, stagnant. They're just like wages are stagnant. So is the accumulate or the disbursement.
And when you're talking about those people, it's only 5,000 people that we're talking about. How many cars can 5,000 people buy?
Exactly.
How many houses can they buy? How many? You know what I mean? Like it would seem like they could buy all of them, but they can't.
And at the same time, they don't. First of all, because you can only live so many places, you can only drive so many cars.
Yeah. And
at the same time, you got to understand this: they do not have the right to hoard money in its economy. That should be against the rules. They are absolutely hoarding money. If someone has $130 million, you could take $130 billion. You can literally take $60 billion and wipe out world hunger, and the dude would still have $65 billion. You're hoarding money.
Bill Gates said it best recently.
Fuck Bill Gates. But go ahead.
I agree, but I will say that one of the things that he said recently that is just spot on was that he feels that there shouldn't be the ability to accumulate wealth and hold it. He would like to
say whatever they want to say, but until I see him do it in practice, then...
Well, no, he said he was open. He's open and he's willing to listen to some of the plans that are being put in place to tax the wealthy, which it takes one. It really does take one. It's because, like you said, the bourgeoisie are the bourgeoisie because they hold together in their ranks. They typically don't break ranks. Broke people that become new bourgeoisie or new money, as we like to call it, they break ranks with broke people. They don't come back. But the bourgeoisie don't break the ranks and go down. We don't do that.
Typically, yeah.
So when you hear someone even allude to that, even if he's just saying it for face time, and we all know Bill Gates really don't got any reason to say shit to the cameras or shit to anybody.
No, politically speaking, it's expedient for him in this climate to say, yeah, I totally think we should pay more tax. Like, no, it makes perfect sense for him.
And I agree.
It makes
but I say,
sense.
if you start saying that, the ones that aren't saying it, now they're on trial for it too. Now it's like, okay, well, Bill Gates is one of the richest men in the world. He thinks that it's not that fair. What do you think? It's like, no, hell no, I want to hold on to all my money.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you really don't think that you really don't care about the people. It's just about having what you want to be a dragon on top of a mountain.
The thing about it is that those people have shown that they don't care. Like, it's not even a matter of, he can say whatever. Like, with people like that, with certain people, you can listen to what they have to say and you got to take them at their word, right? Because you can't really see what they think in action. I'm saying, like, you know what I mean? Like, so, okay, it's hard because, like, even like when we're talking about, like, we talk about these systems, but you can't really see how much you really believe in it because it ain't what.
There's nothing tangible.
Yeah, it's not going on right now. So I'm just telling you, like, dude, I really believe in this. This is what we stand for, whatever, right? Okay, cool. But when you talk to a person like Bill Gates, or you talk to Warren Buffett, or you talk to Bezos or whoever, and they have all of this access, they have all this power, and yet and still they're still practicing. They're still practicing the same thing. What does that mean? Like, they could say whatever. They could tell me, like, no, I think we should. I think we should pay more taxes and blah 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 blah. But Bill, for an example, since you brought up Bill Gates lobbied. He lobbied to have the schools implement that dumbass new math that the kids do. You know what I'm talking about?
They actually developed Common Core. Actually developed a lot of different the Bill and Belinda Gates Foundation. Mm-hmm. They developed a lot of different curriculum type of things, right? Mm-hmm. And they put these huge grants together, right? And so when they look for these grants, and they look for schools to bestow these grants upon. These schools are bending over backwards to implement these ridiculous ideas in order to get this money. Yeah. When in actuality, if they really cared about it, he'd just pay taxes and give it to the department.
No. Screw that. Screw pay. I'm saying, because it ain't like he just gonna give more money to the government. You know what I mean? Like, right. I get that. I'm saying, but what he could do is he literally could just give the money to the system. Like, he could just be like, look, not tax-wise, I'm saying, but he literally could go to the schools could take whatever money you give them, right? So if he was to make a grant, just like you're saying what he's doing, but he's doing it school by school, he's making them like come to him and be like, trying to like suckle at the teeth. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If he was just to be like, you know what? I want to make sure every school has this standard of whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna like literally build a new school, whatever, build up.
Well, I just made a new computer lab in every school.
In every school, yeah. I'm just trying to think of something.
Microsoft, it really is.
I'm gonna have every new school is gonna have a AI division. They're gonna code. They're gonna whatever the hell. Every single school in America, he can afford to do that.
Absolutely,
he has the money to do that. He won't go broke. You know what I'm saying? Not even close to it or anything. The money he spent lobbying to do that bull crap, he could have done that in the school. He could also pay for, he could knock out a student loan debt. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just saying, like if he really and truly is telling me, yeah, I believe in paying more taxes and blah 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 blah, prove it. Because that stuff that you're doing, I don't see it showing up in my day-to-day life. I don't see it showing up in anybody's day-to-day life that you went to Africa and you're freaking giving people vaccines in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
you're sterilizing people in Africa. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a real thing that's been proven. It's happened. He gave but they're going to call that it was accident or whatever. But yeah, he's fine. Oh yeah, let's go to Africa. It blows my mind when rich, wealthy people, and I love Africa, but it blows my mind when wealthy people leave America to go fix the problems in Africa.
Right. When they got a whole
you fly. If you live in LA and you fly over San Bernardino, you fly. If you live in LA, you fly over Chicago,
New Orleans,
you fly over all of these cities. Flint, you fly over all these cities to take your ass to Africa to build a school, Oprah. I don't get that. I don't understand that shit. Like, what are you really doing?
What is
yeah.
it?
And
like
so
if you live in LA, you ain't even gotta do much to walk down the street. You're probably gonna step over. You're probably gonna trip over somebody that's suffering.
You ain't gotta go nowhere. If you live in LA is fucked up.
So we would be remiss. We talked a lot about the the what as far as we can all identify problems, and we understand that King was also very good at identifying the problems. Right.
Yes,
Now we have to talk about the why. The how. Mm-hmm. Okay, because the how is what separated King from everyone else, and his ideal of civil disobedience, it came from people like Gandhi, right? Came from people like Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau. So and then also his application of civil disobedience in application is the wonderful part of it, because the ideals of civil disobedience weren't anything new.
Yeah.
Right. He even compared them to civil disobedience in the Bible.
Yeah.
He had examples that he lived by, the Boston Tea Party and things of that nature, that came to mind for him when he thought of civil disobedience. So but the application of it in this type of situation where Black people had been the victims of tremendous violence already, you know what I mean? Had been a tremendous amount of violence, a tremendous amount of fear in the community. But to mobilize a coalition into mass civil disobedience of unjust laws, what do you? I mean, what are your thoughts on just the? I mean, that to me is just like kind of overwhelming. Like,
yeah,
the ability to do that.
Like,
what are your thoughts on that? On the application, and could that be something that is like, well, how does it look today? Because there's still civil disobedience.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
definitely. But how does it look? How does that look today? Like,
I think today it has to be in the same vein of the Poor People's March. It has to be everybody. It has to look like Occupy Wall Street. Mm-hmm. Like that is what it would look like. And Occupy Wall Street would have been dope had the president at the time not, been basically broke it up. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like if he
actually broke it up.
Yeah, he like
with the help of presidential candidate Mike Bloomberg, among others.
Yeah. So when the Occupy Wall Street to me would be like the best example of that movement. Or if you want to look at the Greta Thunberg stuff, even though I'm not like a real big fan of hers or that, whatever they're doing, I'm just saying like what it would look like in theory. Mm-hmm. It would look something like that. It would have to be a coalition,
like the climate strike.
Like the climate strike. It would need to be like poor working class people coming together to fight against, systemic oppression, whatever. Like that's what it has to be. It could be, it needs to be people walking off of their jobs. It needs to be people being engaged politically, voting, things of that nature.
I remember the late 90s, early 2000s, when you look at in protest of immigration, mm-hmm. and you saw the Mexicans working out of school, walking out of their
Yeah.
jobs,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I
walking
remember that.
walking down the
HR2.
freeway,
Yeah,
91,
I
and
remember
walking
that.
in the freeway.
I remember
Those
that.
type of things
Yeah.
are
And
come
it's,
to mind.
And it's easier. That's what I'm saying. It's easier for us to do that now. The message could get out instantly, right? It don't take long. We used to remember flash mobs. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
like the word could be spread instantly, man. Twitter, Facebook, whatever, right? It happens in other countries all the time. It's happening right now in Iran. It's been happening in France.
France is always on strike.
I was about to say France is that was going to be my answer to your question. It's got to look like the Yellow Vest movement.
The Yellow Vest movement is dope, and
well, they haven't ruled. They haven't ruled out violence, and that's the thing too.
But yeah, no,
they don't rule.
The threat of violence always is there. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like in theory, I want to be a pacifist. In theory, I understand that violence doesn't solve many problems, and I wish that we didn't have to resort to violence, right? But I'm also like, you know, like when shit get, you know what I'm saying?
I understand the violence.
Yeah. When shit get gully, I'll be ready to get, you know what I mean? Like I'm with that too. So you gotta get with it. So but the educated part of my brain tells me to don't be like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't, especially against my own people. And my own people could be working class people because I don't feel the need. I don't feel like working class people are my enemy. No matter the color, the whatever, I don't feel like that. You know what I'm saying? Even though I know that working class people of different races think they're my enemy, so they do things to support my enemy. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they're friends with my enemy and all that stuff, right? They were close proximity with but I know that they don't even know. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't know that we're not enemies, right? Like they just haven't realized that yet. So I feel like, but when stuff like I said, when the Occupy Wall Street thing was happening, you go look at old pictures of that shit. Go look that up because a lot of people wasn't paying attention because the media didn't talk about it. But it was
big.
Movement.
It was
big, and go look at the people.
And it was several cities.
Oh, it was everywhere. It was Washington D.C. It was L.A. It was New York. Go look at
Seattle.
It was everywhere. Boston.
Go look at the people that was participating in it. It looked like it was clergymen, it was teachers, it was police, like it was every walk of life. Black, white, Mexican, young, old. It was all types of people involved in that movement, man. Mm-hmm. Everybody was down with that. It wasn't because we finally, I feel like that was one of the most powerful movements, and it went really like unnoticed to me.
It did.
It really, really did. And I feel like if that happened now.
What I remember about it is the scope of the media when they got a hold of it. It was almost like there were some people in the independent media that were in the crowd and asking people questions and talking to them and looking at the signs and things of that nature. The mainstream media was almost like, who's going to clean this mess up? The people are still in the park and they're taking over, and what's going on and what's the problem? And they're looking for the danger, like it's dangerous, acting like, you know, anything could happen, or people will be getting sexually assaulted. And even though there were no there was no reports of anything like that, but they were trying to make it as if they wanted the protesters to, as opposed to looking at the message of the protesters, they were actually looking at they were actually trying to turn the public against the protesters.
Oh, yeah, that's what they do, of course.
And the president, who could have basically came out and just said something to help public opinion of these people, said nothing.
Yeah.
And
I understand your pain. I get it. You know what I mean? Like,
and said nothing. And the funny thing is that the majority of the people that were in the Occupy Wall Street movement, and especially the leadership, not only voted for him, but were integral parts of the coalition that got him elected.
Yeah.
The people that organized these things were the same people that were organizing for Barack Obama. They were community organizers
because they felt betrayed the most by him, because they got him elected. He ran on a populist platform, and then once he got into office, one of the first things he did was bail out Wall Street.
Right.
And for those people, they were like, that was a stab in the heart.
And not only that, I think that they thought that they could appeal to his better nature with that kind of protest. Like, oh look, if we all get together and we all show him that we're all hurting, surely Barack Obama, surely he would help us because he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Because he always had that. He's a great guy.
He was the grassroots guy.
Right.
He came from hard times, even
Yeah,
though he went to
he-
Harvard.
Right.
He wasn't
He's
that
really
guy.
he's really one of us that became one of them, and he
I just want
like
to tell
that.
y'all ever listening. Hey, he used y'all. If y'all, he wasn't your buddy. He wasn't your guy. He wasn't
Yeah.
your guy.
Now, before we end this, I just want to say something. I want to talk a little bit about Martin Luther King's spiritual aspect of the message. Now, I'm an atheist. Prince is an atheist.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And
Proud atheist too.
but one of the things that was undeniable for King and in his legacy was the actual spiritual aspect of his motivations. And you can't separate him from that. We would be remiss to separate him from his actual spirit. Now, the spirit, that spiritual element was what he used to inspire. That spiritual element actually got him in the door in terms of the fact that, Black people were very close to the church. It was very easy to organize Black people through churches, because everybody was at that time. Most people were connected in some way or another to a church, like your grandma's church or something like so.
Place that you could meet where white people didn't have a say in whether you could be there. They didn't. It was like you couldn't go to the coffee shop.
It was a community. Yeah, it was definitely a community meeting place, and he a lot of the lessons that he or the things that he taught, came straight from biblical insurrection. Because the book of the Bible, whether you believe in what I learned in political theory and what I'm learning in political theory is that myths are necessary. That myths are not false. Like, there's certain things that are not true about myths, but there are truths in myths.
Yeah.
So when you take
like David and Goliath, you just look at the story of David and Goliath, it's like the little guy could beat the giant. You know what I mean? Like the giant has a weakness.
Right.
We can beat it. You know what I'm
saying?
Right.
And that if you have to have the proper motivation, and tapping. Right. And tapping into, but those myths are used to put important things into layman's terms, important types of lessons and things of that nature.
What's it called? Not a fable.
Parable, right? Things of that nature. So he used that same, those myths in order to move, in order to inspire, in order to teach, in order to break down what can sometimes be complicated problems into layman's terms in order to get people to understand that the actions, because a lot of times the actions themselves were very simple. And the way that I kind of relate it to is like, I'm an atheist, so I wouldn't consider something like when he talks about love and he says about the power of like God loves everybody. I don't have to, like when he talks about agape love, which is love for everybody, but he related to godly love. I don't believe that humans have to have God to love everybody in that same sense. I don't think it comes from that, but he's attributing it to that.
I actually love more people after I left religion.
There you go. So
I only loved a certain group of people that I judged. You know what I'm saying? Like I judged more people by not even by what they did, but by what they, who they were affiliated with. You know what I mean? Like I would, when I was in the church, like it was like gangs. You know what I'm saying? So it would be like I was Seventh-day Adventist, and we would look at Baptists and be like, oh, Baptist.
Or the Catholic Church,
because the Catholic Church is like a cult too.
Because that's your ultimate attack when they went out to spread the word of the Seventh-day Adventists. Your direct attack was the Catholic Church.
Yeah, the Catholic Church was trying to destroy it.
And they were the beast or the harlot or whatever, all that. All that. Yeah. So, but basically, we take those same. But I don't ignore that, and that's one thing that I did learn from King, and even doing this study to do this show, you cannot ignore that element. Some people call it spirit or whatever, they attribute it to something that is supernatural, but I attribute it to a part of the human experience, the human psyche, that it exists, a part of human that you have that can be ignited and can be used for positive change. We can never, and nobody did that better than Martin Luther King did. And that is an element that if you look at some of the bigger intellectuals of the day, what they even use, like a Cornel West, Nina Turner,
Yes,
they evoke that same
when
spirit.
Nina Turner talks, people always say, "Oh, I feel like I was transformed. I was in church. She took me to church, right?"
Right.
I even joke about that. Yeah.
The one thing to answer, I guess, on your point, he was very good at speaking. He was very good at speaking. He was very good at speaking love into you, if that makes sense. When you listen to a speech when you listen to the "I Have a Dream" speech, it's moving. It touches you in a way. Like the first time I heard it, I was crying. I cried because it was eloquent, it was well spoken. It was, even if you didn't believe in God, you knew that this man was exhibiting the very natures that we want. He was exhibiting the best in human nature. He was giving us the template to be a better human being. It didn't matter across, and that was one of the reasons why it's hard for me to ever get attached to religion, even when I was going up to church, because as soon as you started to preach a fire and brimstone against going out and talking to a Muslim on the streets, or the infidels or the Gentiles, everybody deserves to be treated equally. It doesn't matter where you come from. If that thought process that he conveyed every time he spoke or every time he came out, if the feeling that he gave me was something that we could get across the world there would be very little use for war.
Right.
There would be, and that's kind of the reason it's hard to even say, oh, well, like a lot of people, I can understand, going all the way back earlier tonight, I can understand why people say he was a punk, but you have to understand that in love, that doesn't necessarily mean weakness.
Well, he said something very important in his letter to Birmingham, letter from jail in Birmingham. He said that they know what to do with violence.
Mm-hmm.
They know what to do with violence. If you wanted to go right now, like our friend that was here on the comments, and Donnell, and wanted to talk violence and get violent and talk revolution, they know what to do. Mm-hmm. They know how to do. Go ask people in Iraq if they know what to do with violence. Go ask the people in Afghanistan if they know what to do with violence. Yeah. They know what to do with that, but they don't know what to do with nonviolence, because the results of nonviolence, you're taking the results of it out. You're taking the results out of your hands. Like he said, if they beat you up, that's good. If they don't beat you up, that's good too. If they, you know what I mean? Like they don't know no matter what the outcome, no matter what they decide to do, you win. And but what worries me is the black communities straying away from that. You know what I mean?
Well, we're getting the fear, I think, is coming back, and people are becoming more fearful, and that's why you see this like clamoring to, oh, we gotta have our guns, we gotta have, you know what I'm saying? Like you get on that, and it's like, I mean, like Fred Hampton said, though, you can't fight fire with fire. You know?
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like, and that's why that saying never makes sense to me. Like, fight fire with fire. So, but firefighters don't show up to a fire and then douse the fire with more fire.
Right.
They don't put gasoline on the fire. They put water on the fire. So you gotta come with the antidote. You don't with the antidote. You don't come with the fucking with the same problem. Right? You don't show up to the problem with the problem.
You're not going to eliminate. You're not going to become the racist that eliminates other people's racism. You're not going to make white people less racist by you becoming a racist. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And that's what we need to understand. But we're starting the same way. I'm not shocked, because people nowadays talk about the earth is flat. Like niggas believe in anything.
There's a regression from intellectualism in the information.
And here's why. Because we take it for granted now. Because we have so much access to it, and we're inundated with it to the point to where we get overloaded with the information. So people start to be like, all this stuff can't be true.
Or it's hip to be square. Like sometimes I think black people just want to be different.
Well, everybody wants to be different. I don't think only black people.
No, because most of the flat Earth people are white.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's not a black.
I'm just concerned about the black people.
Yeah. So I mean, when you talk about it's hard to not specifically be talking about black people. Right. And but yeah, and I totally that was a great point you just brought up. Like what he wrote to the people in Selma when he was in prison. like we need something like that right now. We need that inspiration. But I have found that inspiration in politics.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I found my okay, we could change. You know what I mean? Because before I didn't know, because I never been a money hungry person. I never really been into capitalism. Honestly, never have been. So I never identified with yeah, man, you get $1 million, you could change the world. Like I never felt like that. Like I always just I don't really care about that.
And so people we need to all get together and put our money in together and invest in the stock in the white man's stock market, right? And it's like, but you guys don't own a toilet paper factory, so if the white people decided to not let you wipe your ass no more, you'd be fucked.
It's I'm gonna take care of myself. You can't even handicapped people can take care of themselves, but they still need help.
But to bring it full circle, like no matter what, you guys always remember that, because I think everybody has something inside of them that they want to inspire other people to do.
Absolutely.
And to sometimes we get so caught up in just the wonk of it and the how. And I'm a very practical person, and I sometimes, you know what I mean, I have to remember that there has to be an element of fire that comes along with what you're doing, what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that fire has to not just come out when you're speaking about something, but that same intensity, that same fire has to be in all of your actions. It has to be running through you. And you have to always look for that level of motivation if you're going to lead other people. And I think that what made Martin Luther King an extraordinary leader, maybe the greatest leader of the 20th century, is that that fire ran through everything that he did. It was always in sense of urgency. He was like the Russell Westbrook of civil rights activists.
It was on 10
all 10 all the time.
It was never a day off.
Right, and he was on a mission every single day, and that is something that inspires me when I not just hear his words, but when I read about the things that he did and the things that he went through. It also just and then going out from there, how he's inspired people that had no direct benefit from him, like the BDS movement.
Mm-hmm.
He basically turned people that were considered terrorists into a peaceful, they found a peaceful way to do things by looking at people like Martin Luther King and how those things worked out for him. You know what I mean?
The BDS movement, you're talking about in Chicago?
No, I'm talking about the Palestinian BDS movement.
BDS movement. For some reason, in my brain, I was thinking about, because I was just reading about this yesterday. It was either today or yesterday. I was reading about Black Peace Stone and was it Vice Lords?
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those gangs in Chicago, but I want to say it was Black Peace Stones, and how the leader of it, they went from being a gang, and then he was like, nah, and he changed it into like an organization, and they started being Black Peace Stones, and they started being
Black disciples,
like civil rights leaders, and we could do that in they're in other countries, they have turned their gangs into nonprofit organizations, but we don't have to wait for the government to do that. We could do that ourselves. You know what I'm saying? But we just need the message, like you were saying, and that's why I was getting in my brain. I was already thinking about that. I was already thinking about talking about that, and that if we can inject that message into groups of people like that, then we could actually have a massive movement on our hands, and we could just get those people to buy into it, because they're already militant. They already have the mindset. You know what I'm saying? They have the fortitude. They have they can do it. They're fearless. All that stuff. They're the warrior class, to be honest with you. So if you can get them on board, then we could get something going. But in the meantime, what normal working stiffs like us can do, we just participate, like I said, in the political process, and you just keep spreading the word. You just keep making sure that you debunk all the bullshit that you could possibly debunk.
That you continue to learn.
You continue to learn, so you can spread the information and all that stuff. So.
And inspire people. If there's one thing I'll say to close out any of my commentary, inspire people, man. I mean, you don't have to be a Martin Luther King to make a change. That's something I've said all my life.
I will never be Martin Luther King.
No.
To anybody that's younger than me. But inspire people. Do something. Take a moment in the next week or two to do something nice just for somebody, just because. You might find that shit is as bad as it's been made out to be. But more importantly, just try to find something to inspire people. If you can, go out to a Martin Luther King parade. They typically have them out. Take your kids.
Oh yeah, they'll be all over Monday.
That's what I always try to get out and do myself.
Risk your life at the MLK.
It's not like Riverside isn't so bad.
No, Riverside ain't so bad. It's always shooting Riverside.
If there's an MLK parade and it's on MLK Street, you might be in trouble. My little joke that I always laugh at, the worst street in the whole city, in any city, is always typically Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. The worst hospital is usually Martin Luther King Hospital. Yeah. But anyway, always remember that you can make a change. And that's, I think, the message that I'll always take from Dr. Martin Luther King is you can always make a change. And it doesn't always have to involve somebody losing their life or losing a little bit of blood. Sometimes it does. But at the end of the day, if you do it with love and you try to do it with peace, you will find that people that are trying to come up against you, and it makes them harder. It makes them harder to be justified, and it makes it harder for them, even as evil as they are.
Especially when you're talking about on a government level.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why when you civil disobedience, it's not like, oh yeah, it's supposed to be something that's out in the open, public. Yeah. We don't go underneath, like you guys start underground breaking laws. That doesn't help anything. Yeah. It just makes you criminals. It just makes you criminals. But if you feel like what you're doing is really protesting an unjust law, you're not going to do it undercover. You're going to do it where everyone can see it, because that shows that you really believe it's unjust. And it also gets people to this point where they're evaluating what's going on, and they're evaluating their own soul in the way that they treat you in light of your protest of that unjust law as well.
Women did not put away their breast when it came to feeding their kids. We all know that. And that was a back to civil disobedience that I loved watching. Not for the reasons you might think, but just because, hey, a woman has the right to feed her baby wherever she wants to. And it's not against the law. It's not against the law. So it's the kind of civil disobedience, that I like to see, at least, no pun intended. But, we do need to get back to that, people. We need to get back to telling people, hey, some of the stuff that we see is wrong, and we need to stand up against it. And if that's something that, you take from this show tonight, I'm glad that you did, because, that's what Dr. Martin Luther King wanted us to take from his life as well.
Absolutely. So that'll do it. Yeah. And thank you so much for sticking with us again. Like, share, subscribe, post this on your Facebook. Post it, send it to one of your friends, things of that nature.
YouTube, go on YouTube, Soapbox Heroes on YouTube, and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button.
Okay, look for the return. Look for the return of the Best Case Scenario podcast coming next month. So we're going to be right back at you. The best is yet to come. So
that's Prince Hayes to my left. Yo. Friend of the people, Robert Kelly, straight across from me, and I'm D. Johnson, and we wishing you all a happy good night and a happy Martin Luther King birthday.